The farmers knew they couldn't let the birds destroy everything they had worked for. They asked the government for help, but all they got was a canned response at first. The veterans thought the answer was simple. They were experienced with guns and killing large animals. Surely shooting emus would be easy. It turned out to be much harder than they thought. Part 2. Weapons of war approx. 3 minutes the emus were quick and well camouflaged. The farmers couldn't get close enough to shoot them, but the government soon came up with a better plan. If bullets couldn't stop the birds, they'd use Lewis guns. Powerful weapons used in both world wars to cut down entire squads of enemies. Only one problem, though. The gun was designed for soldiers carrying ammunition belts, not farmers in gumboots. So someone would have to carry around thousands of bullets, expose themselves to danger, and refill the gun. No one volunteered for this dangerous job. But Private James Hardy was desperate. His farm was at risk. He needed money to buy medicine for his sick wife. He offered to do it for £10. That was twice the usual pay for such work. Everyone refused until finally Sergeant Major Meredith agreed. He was an older veteran who had seen enough trouble in his life and was eager to retire. But when he showed up at the farm, he found it wasn't exactly what he expected. Yes, the emus were eating the crops, but apart from that, everything looked normal. Where was the war? What did the farmers want him to fight? The farmers explained the situation, and Meredith saw the determination on their faces. They were serious, okay, he thought. If they want a war, we'll give them a war. Part 3. The attack from above approx. to minutes end. Hour before sunrise, Meredith set up his Lewis gun in a clearing. Farmers from nearby gathered around him, their faces grim. Soon, the first emus appeared on the horizon. The sun glinted off their brown feathers, turning them into a kaleidoscope of colors. Meredith loaded his gun and fired. The air filled with the deafening roar of the Lewis gun and the acrid smell of gunpowder. Smoke rose around Meredith's feet as the earth trembled beneath his gun. When he stopped firing, a cloud of dust hung over the clearing. Panting heavily, he watched as one of the emus collapsed onto the ground, kicking its legs in the air before going still. But the others kept coming and coming and coming. No matter how many fell, more took their place. The farmers had told him the emus were enormous and strong, but he hadn't believed them. Until now, Meredith had never felt so scared. One of the emus ran towards him. Flapping its wings and screaming, Meredith raised his gun and fired. And when he finally stopped shooting, he was out of bullets. This is terrible, he thought. Now what? But then something unexpected happened. Another farmer appeared carrying a fresh belt of ammunition. Meredith quickly replaced his empty belt with a new one and continued shooting. The emus didn't seem to mind the gunfire. They kept marching forward, straight towards Meredith's gun. The farmers said these things eat anything. Meredith thought, well, now they're about to find out if that includes lead. He pulled the trigger again and again and again. But as the sun climbed higher in the sky, Meredith began to despair. He had shot hundreds of emus, maybe even thousands. Yet their numbers seemed endless. Just when he thought it couldn't get any worse, another farmer approached him, his face pale. We have to retreat, he gasped. The emus are getting closer, and they're starting to fight back. Part 4. Retreat and regroup approx. 2 minutes Meredith looked in the direction the man was pointing and saw dozens of emus running towards him, their beaks held high. Some of them had stones in their beaks, which they hurled at the humans. Others picked up sticks and lashed out. Meredith retreated alongside the farmers, the emus hot on their heels. Suddenly, one of the emus tripped and fell. A stone flew out of its beak and landed on Private Thomas, hitting him in the head. He crumpled to the ground. Meredith quickly returned fire, but it was too late. Thomas had already collapsed. The emus kept coming, though. There were too many of them. They were fast, furious, and determined. Meredith had never fought such tenacious opponents. The farmers were exhausted and losing hope. Their guns were heavy, and their bullets were almost spent. Meredith knew if they stayed and fought, they wouldn't last much longer, so he made a difficult decision. He ordered the farmers to retreat to a safer spot about half a mile away. Then he covered their retreat with his Lewis gun. The emus screeched and screamed, but they didn't follow. They stayed in the clearing, beating their wings against the ground and pecking at the earth. Once everyone was safely out of sight, Meredith joined them. He was so tired he could barely stand. They had failed, but at least they were alive, for now. Part 5. The aftermath approx. 2 minutes later that night, the farmers met again. They were hungry and thirsty, but mostly they were dejected. After 2 days of fighting, they had killed fewer than 1,000 emus and lost 1 man. Not only that, but now the emus were even bolder, attacking the farmers and their homes. The farmers didn't know what to do. They couldn't keep fighting like this. Suddenly, someone shouted, "We need reinforcements. All the veterans in Western Australia must come and help us." The others agreed. If this war was to end, they would need every available soldier. They sent a message to the Western Australian government asking for help. Within days, more than 100 veterans arrived carrying rifles and Lewis guns. Together, they formed a small army ready to take on the most stubborn enemy they had ever faced. But when the reinforcements arrived, the emus were gone. As quickly as they had attacked, the emus disappeared into the bush, leaving behind only trampled crops and scattered feathers. To this day, no one knows where they went. Some say the emus simply moved to a new location and the whole thing will happen again next year. Others say the emus are planning something even bigger.